Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. Alan Johnson, and on this channel, I talk about the mind, well-being, productivity, and change for thinkers, makers, and everyone in between. And today I want to talk about the secrets behind motivation. So, what motivation actually is, how it works in our brain, and most importantly, what we're able to do to cultivate motivation to really drive success in our life. Because motivation isn't about willpower. We sometimes think that to be motivated, to have motivation, we just need to hunker down and grit our teeth and drive through with an enduring sense of willpower. But that only gets us so far. Real motivation is our brain's chemical reward system. So we need to learn how that system works and how we can contribute to strengthening our inherent sense of motivation and pushing through our challenges. If you haven't already, please do be sure to like and subscribe to this channel because there's a lot more content that I've already covered and content in the future about the mind and how we can improve and enhance our experience of the world around us. But today, let's begin by talking about motivation. So motivation, where it comes from, it is primarily controlled by what's called our dopaminergic system in our brain. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter that fuels motivation and reward. You've probably heard about getting a dopamine hit after going for a run or eating some chocolate, but it's actually a really serious thing, and there's a system within our brain that moves dopamine around. When we anticipate an outcome or we achieve a positive outcome, our brain releases dopamine, creating a sense of feeling good and satisfaction and reinforcing the behavior that got us there in the first place. So, our dopaminergic system is going to reward us when something goes well to try to encourage us to do it again. And when we're checking a task off our to-do list or hitting a workout goal, it just feels so exciting. We can recognize that dopamine flooding through our brain. But there's something really interesting about this that I need to point out. Dopamine isn't just released when you succeed at something. It is also released when you anticipate success. So, this is why setting small, achievable goals can, over time, build a really positive feedback loop of motivation. Just that anticipation of success is enough to change our neural chemistry and fire us up in a different way. If we really want to cultivate and enhance our sense of motivation, we need to pay attention to how dopamine works in this way. Our brain releases more dopamine in anticipation of a reward than when you actually receive it. And that's a really, really important thing for us to be aware of. Let's think about two examples here. One of them, perhaps a behavior that we don't want to reinforce, and one of them, a positive behavior that we do want to reinforce. So let's say a negative or limiting behavior that we have is ordering takeaway a couple times a week. And, we're not feeling great, we're not healthy, we put on a few pounds, we want to stop doing that. And we will tend to go through the same process to decide to order that pizza or order that curry or whatever it may be. We have the idea, we have that trigger in our mind thinking, I could get a takeaway tonight. And then the anticipation of that reward floods our brain with dopamine. Because remember, the anticipation of reward releases more dopamine than actually achieving an award. So usually, the best time we feel after ordering our pizza or ordering our Chinese isn't after the first bite. It's actually when we've decided to order it, or we've just placed our order, or we hear the doorbell ring and we know that we're about to get our food. So this is the way that our brain chemistry is trying to reinforce that behavior by making us feel really, really good when we are about to eat our giant pizza. But it doesn't mean that that's a healthy behavior for us. Sure, eating a pizza from time to time is completely fine. But if we allow that feedback cycle to continue fueling that behavior, only giving us that boost of dopamine when we are ordering our Chinese or ordering our sushi, that's not something that the health of our physical body really wants. But we can cultivate this in another way, in a more positive way as well. So let's use a big goal here. Let's say that you wanted to lose 15 pounds. And we know that that's a fairly sizable goal and takes a fairly sizable amount of time. We also know that we do get a boost of dopamine when we achieve a goal. So we know that on that day, in a few months from now, when you stand in the scales and you see that you've lost 15 pounds, you will feel that sense of dopamine. Great. But we also know that we get even more dopamine in anticipation of achievement of success. So, how do we capitalize on that then? Well, we stop thinking about our goal as just losing 15 pounds because that's a point in the future that we will get to, we will achieve, we will feel those great dopamine neurotransmitters. But we also have a lot of steps along the way. Remember, we also get a dopamine boost when we feel that we are about to achieve a goal. So we're going to get that dopamine boost every time we see that pound dropping down on the scale. But we also know that weight fluctuates up and down every day. What are we actually looking to gain our sense of motivation from? It's the actions that we are taking to improve our health and to reduce our weight. So if we know that going to the gym 4 or 5 times a week is going to help us to achieve that goal, but we don't actually like going to the gym just yet, we think about how that process of going to the gym is going to help us get closer to achieving that goal. And we'll begin to notice after a few times of going to the gym that actually we're beginning to feel that sense of all those good vibes, that dopamine flooding into our brain. So anytime that our brain wants us to reproduce a behavior, it will give us that sense of feeling good. Sometimes that behavior our brain wants us to reproduce is really ego driven. It's, wanting to just sit in the sofa and eat a pizza and drink wine every night. And we can logically know in our deepest sense of self that that's not a behavior that we want to replicate. And we don't have to choose to replicate that behavior. We can choose to capitalize on understanding how our brains work to replicate more positive behaviors and know how our neurotransmitters are going to be working and how we can use them to strengthen the behaviors that we want to develop further. When we face setbacks, though, and we do face setbacks every day, and certainly toward the achievement of any goal that we encounter, this is when our amygdala, the brain's fear center, begins to kick in. And that's what triggers those feelings of stress and self doubt. And that brings that dopamine release right down and it makes motivation harder to access. So when we are feeling self doubt, we are less able to get that dopamine to really, really build those positive habits within us. So not only do we need to break down our big goals to find those little boosts of dopamine when we can, we also need to work to bring down that sense of stress and self-doubt, which can limit or block dopamine release. So how do we do this? Well, one of the best ways is for us to shift from outcome-based thinking, such as I need to succeed, to process-based thinking. I am learning and improving. Because that type of outcome-based thinking really relegates happiness and pleasure to some unspecified point in the future. That we can only feel contentment when we have succeeded, that we can only feel contentment when we've gotten the certain promotion or the certain title or bought the certain car or gone on the certain vacation. But, that's not really going to enable us to cultivate our brain's natural desire to build positive behaviors. Instead, we can shift it slightly to that process based thinking that I am learning to improve, or every day in every way, I am growing better, or today I'm going to take one action that gets me closer to my goal. Suddenly that sense of stress can become diminished because, well, we can't achieve success overnight or save up for our fantasy holiday in 1 week. What we can do is commit to taking one action per day. Not only is that going to begin to reduce our stress and rumination about this big target or project that we're working on, but it's also going to begin to develop that sense of dopamine release. We're going to be feeling good as we are making progress toward the goal. So if you want to stay motivated consistently, you need to train your brain to expect success. You need to train your brain to expect success. I've given a few tips on how to do that already, but let me boil these down. Number one, set achievable micro goals. What are you able to achieve today? What are you able to achieve before lunch? What are you able to achieve in 1 hour? You don't need to schedule out every hour and every day in this way, but think about what is that first step toward achieving your big goal that will make you feel really good. Because when you feel really good about making a step toward that goal, your brain is going to encourage you to take that next step and that next step. This is that positive motivation feedback loop that we are trying to build up. So setting achievable micro goals is hugely important. Using positive reinforcement is the second one. Celebrate your progress, not just the final results. People laugh when I say this, but go get yourself some sticky gold stars and make yourself a star chart like you had in kindergarten. It can seem really childish, but you will actually be surprised by just how much that type of positive reinforcement can really help to support you. Are there other small, healthy things that you want to reward yourself with? Little rewards when you achieve different parts of your goal, each step along the way. The third thing to keep in mind, visualizing success. Okay. So research shows that visualizing our success begins to activate the same brain circuits as actually succeeding. So this is priming our brain for action. By visualizing achieving our end goal, by visualizing achieving all of the steps on the way to that end goal, we are creating that positive motivation feedback loop. We need to follow up with action, of course, but what we're doing by visualizing success is helping to lay the groundwork for this. So there you have it. Motivation is not about willpower. It's about understanding how our brain's reward system works and using that knowledge to our advantage. So we know that by activating dopamine and setting achievable goals and reinforcing our success along the way, we create a positive feedback loop in this loop of motivation. So, what's the one big goal that you are working on now? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've found this helpful, be sure to like and subscribe or send this on to someone who you think would enjoy it as well. And until next time, keep growing and keep staying mindful. I'll see you then.